Live from Idner Architects, this is Issues in Education. Here to lead a roundtable discussion with leaders in education is moderator John Carney on KTRS.
Now, Dr. Matt Goodman, Interim Executive Director of Education Plus, and Dr. Jennifer Tiller, Chief Academic Officer from there. Thank you both for joining us. So, a lot of acronyms, a lot of things have been bandied about, and I think maybe we start with a definition and the separation as to what exactly Education Plus is, because obviously it's something we're all very interested in.
Sure. So Education Plus, formerly known as Cooperating School Districts of St. Louis, membership-driven organization here in the St. Louis region with member districts from really across the region, from Festus to Troy, even Lincoln County, Warren County, St. Louis County, St. Charles County. Membership-driven organization. Right.
So, but what is the primary purpose? We've talked a lot about technology, using it as tools, and then the teachers and what their lesson plans are and trying to keep up with all of that and communications between the districts. So where do you fall in all of that?
So a lot of that falls in what we'd call the professional learning side of the organization, and teacher learning, administrator learning. And the METC conference and educational technology would fit in that area,
right?
Certainly as a kind of a core piece of the work.
As the Chief Academic Officer, for you, are you developing curriculum, or are you talking to the different districts about what they're doing and make sure they share the ideas, or what am I missing?
Both and. So that is part of what drives kind of our curriculum as an organization from a professional learning standpoint. We do what we call a needs assessment and kind of find out what our districts are wanting to learn, and that's what drives the content. Our staff does build content as well. We bring in keynote speakers. Much of what you see kind of here at the conference, we bring in big names. But that other part is really to grow a professional learning network. So we have lots of what we call PLNs, you said acronyms earlier, but professional learning networks or job-alike groups. And the idea is to really engage a very connected community so that we are sharing in this age of open educational resources. You probably heard that talked a lot about earlier as well. So just engaging in a connected community of professional learners.
How diverse do you find the deployment of education, where a curriculum that is blossoming in one area, you go to another school district and it's completely unrecognizable from what someone else is doing, which may need to be done, but is it that different?
I'd say depending on kind of the topic and the content area, and maybe a specific to the work would depend.
Right.
But that's where the network side of it comes in, because districts, educators want to share, and they're always kind of looking, and trying to understand who's doing what or how are you doing it and how's it working. So that's where those PLNs come in.
Besides the obvious economics, where sadly when money needs to be cut federally or on a state level, and we're not going to get into politics, education is usually in the sight there, and having to do more with less, sadly, is a reality of this day and age in which we live. What are, other than that, some of the biggest challenges that you guys are seeing in the schools?
So, as Jen referenced the idea of needs assessment, and that comes through on the professional learning side, where teachers, administrators are telling us these are the topic areas that matter to us. Mm-hmm. So it really kind of, what comes out of that actually drives that question of issues, I think. And so one area that has really come on within the last couple of years is the idea of serving students with critical needs. We hear that across the membership, across district setting. Students bring with them a diverse set of needs and need help and support, and then teachers, educators, administrators want to help meet those needs. So they're asking us, how do we help meet those student needs? And that's as big and broad, as diverse as you could imagine.
Right, so equity and access to resources. So Matt mentioned students with critical needs. Trauma-informed care is kind of a buzzword in education right now. So students are bringing baggage to school, and teachers are called upon to meet whatever those needs are in the classroom, because until you meet whatever those needs are, they're not ready to learn. So teachers are being called upon to be nurses, feeding children before they can be ready to learn. But some of the other things that we're seeing, there's a high turnover in education, so just that stability in schools, especially, again, I feel like those schools that are struggling financially, that are maybe in a more challenged setting. I just feel like there's just no stability in a school system, and so that makes it harder for everyone.
I found myself saying things where I felt like I'm channeling my grandfather or whatever. But when we were in school, it was like, here's what we're teaching, here's what you keep up or you don't. And most of us, I think, turned out all right. And now we're in a day and age where a kid gets a participation medal or papers are graded in purple because red might be too caustic of a color for them to emotionally deal with. I don't want to get on a soapbox. I know it's a different day and age. And with 4 kids of my own, I understand that there's certain needs that to be attended to. Mine weren't, but I managed to, thrive. Some would say, some would not. But address that for a minute as we go across the spectrum. And again, because you guys have a very unique perspective dealing with so many schools, is that hard to be everything for everyone?
Yeah, certainly. You framed it mentioned resources a minute ago, right? There's always a resource question, more with less, and at the same point being asked to do more. And, and that's where we try to work with districts, and districts even working within themselves to say, how can we go about addressing these issues? I guess that's where I'd say.
I do think it's a different day and age. I think children are exposed to a lot more, just with media. Here we are at a tech conference, but media is putting a lot more things a lot earlier in front of children's eyes.
And you're saying this is my fault?
I know we're saying those millennials, they're getting medals for everything in participation. And I was an English teacher, and I graded in purple, so I'll own that one. I'm going to own that one.
I wasn't judging. I was just citing an example.
But really, I do feel like there's a little bit of we'll say a okay, can't say it.
Desensitizing?
Mm-hmm, yes. But I do feel like children are exposed to a lot more, and so I don't know if there's issues that aren't dealt with, or it's different. I feel like the kids are bringing more issues, different issues, and so I know exactly what you're saying, but I feel like they have to be dealt with before you can get to the education side of things.
As your job at Education Plus, bringing these schools together to share their resources, do you find that the most successful ones have time for it? Or are they busy full-time doing that, so they don't really have time to, all right, sit down. Now I've got to go work with this school district. But is that a problem? Is that an issue sometimes?
I think they look to make time for it.
Right.
And a lot of times, if they're struggling, whatever it might be, will kind of surface from them, saying it would be more efficient if we would get together and talk about how we might do
How can we
whatever.
How can we learn more about Education Plus? As parents, as consumers?
Yeah. Our website is edplus.org, and that contains all sorts of information around us.
Dr. Matthew Goodman, the Interim Executive Director of Education Plus, and their Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Jennifer Tiller, whose hair still looks fantastic, even with the headset on. I know there was some concern at one point. Is there anything that we're not getting to? Because I want to make sure that we've covered the ground. There's been much discussed.
Mm-hmm. No, I don't think so. Collaboration is kind of what we look for, and an event like this is a great example of that, of building a program and teachers learning together.